and welcome into the Week 7 edition of the Consistently Cashin podcast. Yourself truly, Colby Conway, is back, as well as Ron Rigney. You can find him over on X at, is it The Real Made? Is that right, Ron?
No, it's just at Ron Rigney now. Did a little
That's what it
change up
used
over there. Made it a little easier to find my shenanigans.
Right, it used to be that. So if you were following that account, unfollow that account and now go to Ron Rigney. Give him a follow there. I'm over at Colby R. Conway. Week 7 edition of Consistently Cash and Podcast. We're back after a monster week 6. Our lineup put up over 140 points, I believe. Some sort of decimal points. I don't remember the exact number, but that baby was good enough to cash. So we are back on the clutch game streak, and let's look to be consistent and log another clutch game. Ron, what do you say?
Let's do it. We were talking about off air. This is a little bit tougher of a build this week, but there's a couple of games on that slate that I think enough points are going to be scored that you can get some bargain options and still get a piece of those 50-point totals. So let's see what we can do.
That's absolutely right. And based on that, when it's come to the quarterback position, I basically crossed the top 10 guys off. With the way I want to build in other positions, even with the uber mega chalk player that is at wide receiver that we'll talk about a little bit later, it's way too cheap. We'll talk about him a little bit later. It's still hard to really fit in a high price guy. If you're paying up, I don't think either of us are, but if you are, I think you just bite the bullet and go with Jaden Daniels and don't look back because Carolina is just so bad. Maybe Jordan Love at 6,900. You could look at Jared Goff at 6,500, but I'll be honest with you, Ron, I'm not quarterback shopping above $6,000 this week on DraftKings.
No, not a bit. And again, I tried to make Jaden Daniels happen. I don't mind Jalen Hurts so much, but just with the players at other spots, I don't think that you can do it. I don't think you can get anybody that's going to be in that 7,000 range and actually like the lineup when you get done. So I settled around that 6,000 mark myself.
I did as well. The ones I kept looking at, honestly, it's in the same game. I keep coming back to Kirk or Geno Smith. That's just where I keep settling in. I love that game. You'll know that I like both quarterbacks if you go listen to the Profit Like It's Hot podcast, because there's a podcast exclusive parlay that happens to deal with both of these guys. But I like both options in that game. I've really leaned into Geno Smith at 5,800, leading the league in passing yards. The touchdowns will come, and it's a great matchup. So Geno Smith is the quarterback I've really locked in on. Is he your guy, or have you been looking elsewhere?
He was right there, and I think we may have to end up pivoting that direction. I ended up going with Sam Darnold at 6,200. Again, another game with a 50-point total. I talked about Jordan Addison getting an anytime touchdown. I think Justin Jefferson has capability to score a couple. That's going to be a fun game to watch. But that Lions secondary is so bad against the opposing wide receivers again against quarterbacks, and so I ended up settling there. But again, it's right in that range of where you talked about with Geno Smith and Kirk Cousins as well.
And the nice thing about Detroit, Minnesota is that we know going into that game what both defenses do very well, and it's stop the run. And we both know what they both don't do very well, at least in terms of statistical numbers. They don't defend the pass very well, especially Detroit. So Sam Darnold is very intriguing. What do you make of this? Is more as just kind of an anecdotal talking point as a proud Texans fan, really. But what do you make of Jameis Winston and Deshaun Watson being the same price on DraftKings?
I mean, it says a lot about how things in Cleveland have gone extremely south. Again, it's amazing that this guy was traded for multiple first-round picks and given the largest guaranteed contract in the history of the NFL. And I think I saw where he has something like 19 touchdown passes in all the time he's been in there. What a shame for Browns fans.
Yep. Sorry, Bob Long. And if you're out there listening in your coconut bra on the islands of Hawaii, if you're just chilling there, as I'm sitting here drinking pumpkin spice latte in 52-degree weather, which is too darn cold for us North Carolinians here. But ultimately, back to this. Yeah, that was just talking point as a proud Texans fan. I just like to bring it up anytime I can. So as we're talking about the quarterback position, I think really for me, it's this Cousins to Geno Smith range. I think you're hanging out in here, whether it's Cousins, Darnold, or Geno. I think that's where you're really settling. If you pay up, try to get Jaden. It's just so darn hard with these other positions coming up. So like when we go to running back, if money wasn't an option, you have the Saquon Barkley revenge game. I won't fault anybody for looking there, but my goodness, any other week, it would be like, hey, Ron, I know we're going to talk about things, but we're going to play Kyron no matter what. And that's just where we're going to go. But this is a really hard week because you still have Justin Jefferson. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've got 3 tight ends at the top of the board who are in pretty good matchups, more or less. It's really hard this week. You have to give up somewhere. You're giving up a top price QB, you're dropping down from wide receiver, or you're fading Kyron, who could go for 103 touchdowns this week. Like, we have Kyron Williams, a workhorse back, against a bad rushing defense in a game where the Rams are multi-point favorites. Like, this is the stars aligning for Kyron Williams. It's just he's $8,100, and this week is the worst for DFS.
Well, on top of the fact too that the Rams have no one to throw to still, and we've seen Kyron Williams, even if Cooper Kupp and even if Puka Nacua are in the lineup, they still want to get him the ball early and often, and I don't see any reason they can't. Again, that price point is the only hang up that I have, but I think that we're going to have to try to find a way to make it work and find a way to make it around that 8,100, because as you said, this would be the week of all weeks to make sure Kyron Williams is in your lineup.
It would be the week of all weeks, but is this the week where we put Kyron Williams in? We'll have to see when we get to actually building the lineup later on. So, Kyron aside, what running backs have really caught your eye this week? I know there's a few on my radar, but I'm curious if we kind of agree on either or on any.
Again, had to go a little cheaper just because I feel like that's kind of the method of the week here. I kind of like if depending on what happens with Brian Robinson, I don't own him anywhere, so I'm not sure what his status is. Austin Eckler's not a bad option if you move down a little bit. And again, in the lineup build that I did, I ended up going with that Colts Dolphins game. I ended up going with Devin Achane against Indy. He's cleared concussion protocol. He should be fresh. They cannot defend either the run or the pass. DeForest Buckner, again, not in there. Devin Achane's a big play waiting to happen. And with Tyler Huntley there, that could go either really well against the Colts or that could go really south and they're not able to throw the football. I think they're going to have to lean on him. And then I went with the other side of that one, Trey Sermon, just because it's a cheaper volume play. I don't love it, but again, a lot of receivers banged up in that Colts wide receiver room. I think Pierce, Pittman, and Downs are all questionable. So you've got Adonai Mitchell et al. I don't know really what's past him. I don't think it really matters. But I look for Trey Sermon to get a good bit of work, and for the amount of work he's going to get, I know he's going to be chalky. But at $5,500, I felt like that was a good play as well.
Sure. So actually, I do like Achane, especially if there's any week for Mike McDaniel to get the offense going again. It's coming off of a bye.
Yeah.
So hopefully, in 2 weeks, McDaniel can sprinkle some magic there and get this offense at least looking like a competent NFL offense again. Another guy I've really settled in on is Chuba Hubbard, 6,500. Washington sucks against the run. Jonathan Allen is now out for this game, so that takes a talented run or just a talented defensive player for that fact away from there. So Chuba Hubbard has found his way into every lineup of mine. I think you can play Austin Eckler whether or not Brian Robinson Jr. plays. It sounds like Robinson Jr. is going to play, but you want any running back against Carolina. Did you see what Atlanta did last week? Bijan had a massive day, and Algier still had a big day as well, so you can run all over them. I really love Tony Pollard. I love running backs against Buffalo, but there's a very real chance that this game is 14-0 at the end of the first quarter because Will Levis crapped himself, for a lack of better words, and now we're going to lose Pollard's rushing volume and have to hope for receiving targets, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, but I'd be more confident in Pollard if I knew Tennessee could keep this game close. Singletary and Tyrone Tracy possibly splitting work. No thank you for me there. I'm with you. I do like Austin Eckler again, regardless on the status of Brian Robinson Jr. I think you can go down to Sermon. Maybe you don't necessarily need to, but if you want to save some money, I think he is in a very fine spot as well. After that, I don't think you need to go much farther at the running back position than that. I kind of like Bijan again. I'm not going to lie. I just like this whole Atlanta-Seattle game. You won't hear me saying many bad things about anybody in this game. So I do like Bijan. And honestly, at this point, Joe Mixon just might have to be a weekly play. I mean, when he is in there, they are giving him touches. And even last week, first game back from an ankle injury, was on a little bit of a snap count. Still got 13 carries. He got 3 targets, and he has an elite red zone role. I mean, they're letting him run option routes out of the backfield in the red zone. The healthier he gets, the more he's going to go. And we've already seen back to week 1. Remember when they gave him 30 carries in that game. So could look Joe Mixon's way as well. And obviously Kenneth Walker, would never doubt anyone for playing.
And the thing I've always said on this podcast and on the consistency show as well is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has some deceivingly good, just sneaky receiving stats as well. You wouldn't think of him as being a receiving back, but when you look at his time in Cincinnati, there's seasons that stick out where he had way more receptions than you ever would have thought he would have had. So he's definitely going to help you there. And they're still going to be without Nico Collins for a few weeks as well. So again, why not give it to Mr. Mixon early and often?
And I mean, you look here, 11 targets in 3 games. He left the Chicago game early. So if you go 11 by 3, it's about 4. It's a little under 4 targets a game, but we'll round up because we're nice people here. Over 17 games, which obviously he won't play because he's missed 3 or 4. But for a 17-game season, that's 68 targets. That's the pretty good volume there for a running back there. And there's no other running back in town. Dameon Pierce had the long touchdown run last week, but it's Joe Mixon's backfield and nobody else's. So I'm not concerned there. So let's go over to wide receiver. Good freaking luck at this position at the top. I mean, do you go Justin Jefferson? If you can get to Amon-Ra St. Brown, what I feel like is going to happen is a lot of people are going to be like, it's only $200 to Justin Jefferson. And they're going to try to make some maneuvering there. So I think for cash games, I'm probably going to try to just do Justin Jefferson and carry on. But I think if you go tournaments, Amon-Ra might be sneaky just because I think ownership will be down on him compared to Jefferson. Because again, quote, it's only $200 more to get to Justin Jefferson. People will find a way to make that work. Do you have a strong preference between either one of these two? If money weren't a factor and they were equal price, I would be looking at Justin Jefferson. But that's just me. I think both are great spots this week. I would probably lean Jefferson, though, for me.
I would as well. I just think the touchdown upside is a little greater there. Amon-Ra, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a product of the offense, a product of defense is keying on him in the red zone, but the dude just is not a big touchdown guy. Justin Jefferson is. I feel like as well, if you listen to the Profit Like It's Hot, I feel like that 2+ touchdown bet, if you wanted to go with that with Justin Jefferson's a nice one as well. But I just feel like, but again, though, the one thing about that $200 is I feel like if there's ever a week that you're going to need that $200, this is that week. This was a tough build, but I don't think you go wrong with either one. I think there's a couple of guys up here at the top that you can get away with. But yeah, if I'm going to go with that, I'm going to try to make JJ work, especially in a cash game.
Absolutely. So those are the kind of guys we're looking at the top. Let's go to some other receivers that you are looking at. And as you kind of identify some receivers that you like, I want to kind of lead with a question first. Can you trust Cooper Kupp this week if he plays?
I don't want to, just because of the fact that Kyron Williams is going to be, I think, the focal point. I don't think they're going to be in any hurry to give Cooper Kupp a giant workload if he plays. They would be able to throw. So, I mean, again, it could be like maybe a cash game kind of sneaky play because a lot of people might see that and be scared off. So if you're feeling bold about it and you feel like it's a good play, I think you can make an argument for it. Me personally, I think you can go down a little bit, maybe even save a little bit of money and find somebody that might get you a little bit more production.
Absolutely. I think you could go that route. Again, if you can get to Cooper Kupp, you can at least get to Amon-Ra. So just make your way there. So what are some of the other receivers that you're looking at here for your week 7 lineups?
I don't necessarily mind. I thought about Tyreek Hill at 7,300. I like that price, but again, he's got Tyler Huntley throwing him the football, but it's Indianapolis. As you said, it's coming off a bye week and it's Mike McDaniel. So Mike McDaniel has always been good about creating opportunities for the guys in his offense. I think Cashin gets that. I think Tyreek Hill gets that. So I didn't think that was bad at 7,300. It was hard to kind of find a way to make it work. As far as anything a little bit lower than that, I looked at Stephon Diggs. I don't know what I think about that one. The guy scores a lot of touchdowns, and I think that continues. I looked at Jameson Williams. If you can't find a way to fit Amon-Ra in, I looked at him a little bit further down. But where I ended up settling in, I think every receiver I have is in that mid 5,000 range. The 3 that I settled on were Amari Cooper in Buffalo. I feel like they're bringing him in. They're going to get him the football. They're going to have to. I feel like he's going to be targeted heavily because I feel like they want to get him going. I went with Jordan Addison. Again, love that Vikings and Lions game. And if you're not able to afford Justin Jefferson, I think Addison is a nice pivot off of that and save you some cash there and still have a piece of that game. And then I went with Xavier Legette at 5,100. Again, Adam Thielen not there. I don't know I think Deontay Johnson is out or he's questionable, one of the two. But I feel like, again, I don't love it, but with Andy Dalton, it's a much better play than it would be with Bryce Young. But I feel like they're going to have to throw against a terrible Washington Commanders secondary.
Deontay Johnson's dealing. Believe he's still questionable. I don't think they've ruled him out, but he's dealing with what they have called multiple
Yeah,
injuries.
I was gonna say. I remember reading about he's banged up in like 3 or 4 different spots, so it doesn't look good.
He sure is. But if he gets traded, all those will go away. So we'll have to see. Kind of like how Devontae Adams' hamstring just cleared right up, just like
Yep.
that
Amazing.
overnight. So some guys I agree with you. I like there as well. Some other ones that I am really looking at. I do like Drake London. I like Terry McLaurin. I like Deontay Johnson, actually. I guess we're just kind of all in on Carolina because you talked
Yeah.
about Leggett. I've talked
Yeah.
about Chuba, and now Deontay Johnson. I like Tank Dell at 6,500. I actually prefer T. Higgins to Jamar Chase this week for what it's worth. At 6,400, I do like Jameson Williams, so I'm with you there. Jackson Smith and Jigba is one of my favorite ones. I think he is the one to stack with Geno Smith this week because Atlanta is really bad against slot receivers, and that's where JSN shines. I'm with you on Jordan Addison. And then really you get down into this range, it gets a little ugly. There's Leggett at 5,100. I'm with you there. If Kupp doesn't play, you could look at Whittington. I think he's in a good spot, but ultimately, I have not had a DraftKings lineup that I have built thus far that did not include Juju Smith-Schuster in it because Juju at 4,000 is just too cheap. It's like last week. We got burned a little bit by this last week or the week before where Darnell Mooney was only like $5,000. And it's like, you have to play Darnell Mooney at $5,000. That's how it is with me this week with Juju. I think at 4,000, it's too cheap. And if he is going to have that Rashee Rice role, which it looks like he's going to have, PPR gold, he's the only other guy there that Mahomes has kind of a rapport with, it looks like. They're still bringing along Worthy. Obviously, Kelsey's there. So for me, I think Juju is a lock at $4,000. It's too cheap, and it gives you enough money that you might be able, if you're lucky, to get Justin Jefferson or Kyron Williams into your lineup. So that's where I've really settled in at wide receiver. If we head over to tight end, for me, if I have the money, it's Kittle. If I don't, it's Bowers. And then if not, I'm dropping down to like Tucker Kraft, David Njoku, and Zach Ertz. That's pretty much where I have eyes at the tight end position this week.
Yeah, again, Zach Ertz, I think, is the one I like as far as the value play. I was able to make George Kittle work in mine, but it's tough at $6,000 trying to get that to work and get a superstar anywhere else, especially, the Justin Jeffersons of the world. But again, the Chiefs defense, as good as it's been, the one thing they've not been able to do is stop the tight end. 37 receptions allowed to tight ends. George Kittle has been healthy for the most part, but he's been a pretty big part of that offense with, the kind of questionable status every week of Deebo Samuel, of course, without Christian McCaffrey being in there. So I made Kittle work. Do I love my lineup? I don't know so much about that, but if you can find a way to make it work, I really wish Kate Otten was in this slate, but he is not since they're playing Monday night. But I'm with you on all the names that you said there. But I think if I'm paying down, Zach Ertz is probably my favorite play.
Yep. And if you need to save more money, I would look at Jatavion Sanders as he has 12 targets over the last 2 weeks. So I'd look at him. Defense, it's kind of be whatever you have money for. I like Buffalo going against Tennessee because hashtag Will Levis. I like the Bengals because hashtag Deshaun Watson and everything that we've already talked about with him. Defense is ugly this week. I could even make a case for the Browns just because they are talented on defense. Not a great matchup, but they do have some dudes there that are pretty talented. So I would bet on talent in that one. Other than that, man, I basically just save defense and whatever I have money for. I'm just like, you know what? I'll create a case that makes them a compelling play and I'll make it work because I'm more concerned about getting the other guys that I want more so than the team defense.
Yeah, you're a better man than I because my case for the defense I had to go with is who I could afford and who was the top one at that price point. And I ended up going with the Chiefs against the 49ers. I don't love it, but at $3,100, that's what I had room for. I don't also love just starting George Kittle against a defense that I'm going with, but I feel like there's enough that he can get some, and the Chiefs defense, maybe they can get a pick, maybe they can recover a fumble. Because again, that 49ers offense has been really good some weeks and has not been so good some weeks. And when you look at the Chiefs being undefeated, it's not necessarily, Patrick Mahomes is a great real life fantasy quarterback or real life quarterback, but those fantasy numbers from that offense for the most part have not been there. But that defense has been what's been carrying them if you've watched them at all, because how can you not? Because they're on every primetime game every week.
That is true. They do manage to get that. I will say that. So let's go ahead and build the lineup. We each get one person that we get to lock in. Kind of no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So who is your guy that we're locking in?
I think mine is going to be Jordan Addison this week. Or no, you know what? Scratch that. I don't want to do that because I want to see if we can get Justin Jefferson in there. My lock's going to be Devin Achane.
All right. Let's put Achane. I am going to take the other running back. We'll go Chuba Hubbard. I'm also going to put Juju in because it's just too cheap at $4,000.
Yep.
All right, now the conversations really begin. You want to try? You want to try to make Jefferson work?
Absolutely.
Let's go Jefferson. Quarterback, I guess. Put Darnold in for now and pivot to Geno if need be.
Yep.
Okay. Wide receiver, tight end, flex. So if we go 3 for a defense, we're at 15. We basically have 5,100 for wide receiver, tight end, and flex, which actually might not be terribly bad. What about if we go Ertz, we're basically going to lock in a better wide receiver and flex, whereas we'll sacrifice a little bit if we go Kittle or Bowers. What about Zach Ertz?
Oh, I love that. Like I said, that's my favorite one as far as paying down. Again, I never thought we'd be all in on Washington versus Carolina, but with two terrible defenses like that, you would think they've got to be able to score. And that Carolina offense has looked a little better, so I think they can keep it competitive. But that Washington Commander offense is rolling, and again, with at that price point, I don't think there's much else you can go with at that price point and feel good about it at tight end.
We could look at Jordan Addison and go the double stack with Jefferson, Addison, and Darnold. But I almost wonder if we should actually go Jameson Williams to bring something back on the other side of that game.
I do like that. Again, I was looking at him at that price. Again, depending on what happens with Deontay Johnson, Xavier Leggette's there at $5,100 as well. Also, I'll almost maybe think we ought to go with. I think we're going to need that extra money a little bit later. So I almost like going with that Smith and Jigba stack. May have to do that.
I mean, we can play, if we play Smith and Jigba, we got 2,300. Whoa, 2,300 for a defense. That would give us the Titans. So we might have to go a little bit cheaper than Smith and Jigba. So let's drop down to like the low ones. If we go Leggett, that's 2 Carolinas that we're playing without their quarterback, which it's not like you can't do it. Let's see. There's Leggett. We just talked about him. Kincaid. Take a shot on Christian Watson. He's not exactly a consistency guy, though, so I don't know if we quite want to go that route. Do we go the double tight end and just go David Njoku? What's Sermon? 55. So that
55.
would give us 2,700 for a defense. That puts us in Brown's range.
Okay, I like that. I could be talked into that.
That would then give us $200 left over. If we would do that, if we lock in the Browns, that would give us $200. The only real thing that we could probably do is move Ertz up to David Njoku. If you have a lean there with him, or if you prefer Ertz, we can just swallow the 200, and this is what we're going with.
I think I'd prefer Ertz just because I never thought I would say this either, but I trust Jaden Daniels way more than I trust Deshaun Watson.
Welcome to week 7 of the NFL season. That's where we're at. So that'll do it for the week 7 consistently cash and lineup. You got Sam Darnold, Devon Achane, Chuba Hubbard, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Jefferson, Jameson Williams, all 3 wide receivers. First names beginning with a J means we're cashing. Then we get a Z with Zach Ertz. We're just Scrabble kings right here, as I'm seeing them in the wide receiver tight end room. Trey Sermon and the Cleveland Browns defense. Ron, let everyone know where they can find you over on X and all of your work here at BigGuyFantasySports.com.
Yeah, man, real simple on the X at Ron Rigney. Simplified it a little bit to find me over there. Waiver wire article out this week. I'm guest starring on the Prop It Like It's Hot podcast as Mr. Bob Long is on the beach in Hawaii sipping Mai Tais. So hope he's enjoying himself there, drowning his sorrows as a Browns fan. And again, get your butt over to BigGuyFantasySports.com. If you don't have the subscription, grab that. $20 gets you a lot of stuff that you don't get just in the free side of it. And again, you got Colby's article, you got who's hot, who's not, you got waiver wire stuff, you got start sit, you got all kind of stuff. And most importantly, you've got all the consistency you can handle at BigGuyFantasySports.com.
That's right. BigGuyFantasySports.com is the place to be. So make sure you're checking that out. Give me a follow over on X at Colby R. Conway. And we will see you in week 8 with the next edition of the Consistently Cashing podcast. So best of luck in week 7. And as always, stay consistent.